Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench.
Hello, welcome back to Fighting on Film. Last week we covered The Longest Day with Paul Woodidge of World War II TV.
We did.
And thanks to everyone's listens, shares, ratings, people really loving that episode. We've been in the top 20 and the top 10, of the entire UK podcast charts for film reviews for nearly 3 weeks now. So we want to say a huge, huge thank you to everybody.
It's massive.
Who shared the show. We love to see it. Patrons and non-Patreon members may have seen my big thank you post for sticking with us over the hiatus. And now I finally feel like we're back. We're probably back under our own power, shall I say?
We're back up to steam, aren't we? We're getting
firing
there.
all cylinders. Yeah. So without further ado, in the week that the Euros finally come round, we are not doing a football movie.
Thank God.
Thank God. We are doing Red Dawn 2012, the Red Dawn remake. Because in classic FOF style, we couldn't just do the one everyone loves. We have to do the remake first.
Not happening.
It's not happening.
We're not doing that for a while. But
no, there's a plan.
It's going to be good when we do. Yeah,
there's a plan for that. There'll be party poppers when we have it. Anyone work that one out? Do let us know. So, without further ado, it's large question time. And this week's large question was from Matt. And Matt's large question was...
Breaking with tradition.
Breaking with tradition. Matt,
the jingle's not going to work this week. Oh, well.
It will, because I'll just lay it over. So do you want to say large question and I'll lay it over?
Large question.
Wait, right. So, Matt, what was the large question this week?
It was, what is your favourite war movie remake? Which is a harder question than it sounds, to be honest, because granted, there aren't that many of them, but the ones that are out there are really interesting.
So we had a few replies. We had Adam Christian said, didn't know there was an original Thin Red Line, although I thought the 1998 one was the only one. What did I miss? Seeing as there aren't many to pick, I would go with All Quiet on the Western Front, both 1979 and 2022. They both have their quirks and feebles, but are both good.
They're all interesting adaptations. That's the beauty of those.
Rob Schaefer goes with De Bruyne remake is abysmal. I've heard that. It's not meant to be very good.
Yeah, I've seen bits of it. I've watched like numerous clips, probably enough to get the vibe.
Yeah, the if anyone's seen the DVD artwork of it, the 2008 DVD of it, it really doesn't do the film justice. It makes it look like sort of a generic war film when it's really not that. Adam Brown goes with The Alamo. Yes, westerns can be war films, although the later version...
I like the Disney remake. That is going to be a hell of an episode when we do it, because that's a really good remake.
It is, yeah.
It includes some extra stuff. It really has some good scale to it. The mise en scene's really good. It's a decent film, but it bombed so hard.
It did bomb.
It's going to be really interesting to talk about that one.
He says, although the latter version of this one is not so much a remake as it is an attempt at a more accurate portrayal of the main characters, we have Proper Hockey Players on a name on Twitter. He says, I'm going to be cheeky and say The Way Ahead 1945, as is essentially a remake of The New Lot. Basically the same cast, but with a new role for Peter Ustinov.
I appreciate
that one. That's a very good pick. I'm loving that one. Harvey Griffiths goes very avant-garde left field. He goes, the Lego stop motion Battle of the Bulge is far superior to the original because there are trees, snow, and actual tanks. Fantastic.
We've been threatening to do a Lego stop motion film for a while.
Yeah.
I think we need to approach one of the big channels that do them and talk about the process, because it's a massive amount of work to do like a long film about they do some interesting stuff. Anyway, carry on.
That's fine. William Longstreet goes with, some may not consider it a remake of Kelly's Heroes, but I'll go with Three Kings. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's a spiritual sequel, I guess.
Yeah.
And And then we had just a few more for All Quiet on the Western Front from Craig and
That's the most
JD.
obvious one, isn't it?
Yeah, Rob Nickel went for the 1930 All Quiet, but he said I prefer 1979's version.
Mm.
And then yeah, and then another one from Tall Bloke for the Thin Red Line. So yeah, thanks for your input on that one, guys. I think it threw a few.
I
Um,
think so.
it was a bit of a mean one.
It's yeah, it's one of
Matt's
those questions
mean
where
question.
it's one of those ones where you think, yeah, but there aren't that many remakes, but there are. I mean, I think mine is actually Sahara with Jim Belushi,
Ooh, that's a
which
shout.
remakes the Bogey,
Yeah,
original. Um, and it's well made, um, decent film, but it's got that nostalgia value. I remember watching it as a kid and thinking, wow, this is a really cool film before I'd
it
even
looks very
seen
90s. Yeah.
the original, you know?
They're both
And
strong. I've seen like 20 minutes of the 95 one. It's really hard to find. I need to find a
oh
DVD of
yeah,
it.
it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Directed by Brian Trenchard Smith of Firebase
Mm-hmm.
Gloria fame. Yeah, it's
Yes, I was
really
going to say
cool.
that myself, but
Yeah.
it's good. It'd be great to get him on to do it. To be honest, it'd be great to
Try him.
get him on to do the original, talk about the original because he must have loved it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, so no. Another
What
great
about you?
large question there.
What about you, though, Rob?
For me, I'd go with Thin Red Line, 1998, because I love what it tries to do. It's trying to be like an arty movie, but it's also trying to be a summer blockbuster. And it just about works, but then it doesn't. And there's
Yeah.
so much going on with the production, how many actors were involved and then had their roles cut or approached and didn't end up on the movie. Like it's just that movie is, as a whole microcosm in itself is so interesting.
Mm, yeah.
And the action scenes when they're happening are really good. Like so they rival Saving Private Ryan, or maybe even are better on some level. Because technically it's a really good movie. So on to cast this week, and it's with me. I'm just going to cover the key players of Red Dawn 2012 because there is a lot of Wolverines in this one, way more than the first movie ever had, and we'd be here forever. So I'm just
I
doing the
was
key
like, Rob,
players.
why is there so many Wolverines?
We literally were, weren't we? But there's a whole division almost of Wolverine in this one.
Oh, like a
Um,
platoon strength Wolverines within
really,
the first 20
really is.
minutes. Mad.
Yeah. So our big star of the movie is Chris Hemsworth playing Jed Eckert. He's a Marine on leave. He's your sort of Swayze type, I guess, if you want to liken it to the original. I'll be doing that with a few characters
Was
just to
he a
sort
Marine? He never mentions it.
of just every 5 minutes. He's an Australian actor, of course, probably best known for his role as Thor in the MCU. Um, More about that later because he wasn't Thor when this was originally made, but Matt will fill in on that in a minute. But obviously, his other in credits include Home and Away. I think every famous Australian actor's either been in Neighbours or Home and Away
I think
um,
so. There's
as a
another
sort of
member of the cast that's
launching.
now in Home and Away.
There is,
I'm sure
yeah,
we'll get to that in a minute.
yeah. He was in the 2009 Star Trek reboot. He was in the Afghanistan movie 12 Strong, which is actually
Hmm.
really good. We'll have to cover that one day. Ghostbusters, Extraction 1 and 2, which are mercenary movies, so they're
Not
going to
bad.
come up in a they're going to come up in a
Passable.
Merc month. They are good.
Serviceable. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with them. And the recently released Furiosa: A Mad Max Saga. Then we have Josh Peck playing Mac Eckert. He's the sort of Charlie Sheen type character. He's a former Disney child star who sort of shot to fame playing Josh in Drake and Josh on the Disney Channel. If any FOF listeners ever
Never
watched that,
saw
I'll
it.
be very surprised. No,
No.
I was a CBBC kid or Cartoon Network kid.
Same.
Disney Channel, Disney Channel 2
I think it's
saccharine for
before. I
me.
think it was after our time
I
anyway,
think it
really,
was.
wasn't it?
Yeah, I had a mate who loved it though. Um,
Oh, right.
in
Okay.
like secondary school in like 2004. We was been like 12, so I guess you're
Yeah.
in that sort of ballpark.
Oh,
But then
so
he pivoted into more serious roles. I think with Red Dawn being one of his first forays into more sort of adult cinema. But then he sort of fell back on more, yeah, adult cinema. Matt laughed at that. You bloody child. You know what I meant.
sorry, carry on.
Um, no, he sort of fell back on a more sort of child orientated work. So he voiced Eddie in the Ice Age franchise, but then he later appeared as Oppenheimer. No, he didn't. He later appeared in Oppenheimer as Kenneth Bainbridge, one of the physicists, I think.
Oh, did he? I never
Uh,
noticed.
yeah,
That's
there's so many
that's bad,
people in
isn't
that
it? I
again.
didn't spot him.
No. Josh Hutcherson. plays Robert Kittner. He's Robert from the original film, really, with the one with the Yushaka that shouts Wolverines. Um, he played Peter in the Hunger Games franchise. I think he's probably best known from that. He also is in The Disaster Artist, which is that movie about the room. And he also was
Oh
in
yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's, Beekeeper movie with Jason Statham. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I know. Then we have Peter Brett Cullen as Police Sergeant Tom Eckert. He's the father of Jed and Matt. He's your Jeffrey Dean Stanton character, I guess, from the first movie.
Harry Dean Stanton.
Harry
Go
Dean,
again.
sorry, he's your
You
Harry
can't get
Dean
it wrong.
Stanton from the OG. Prolific American character actor. He appeared in What Up, Apollo 13, Joker, and his TV roles include Star Trek Deep Space Nine, MASH, The West Wing, and Narcos. He's been and done it all, has Peter Brett Cullen.
Which
Really
DS9 it was in?
recognizable face. Oh, crap. The one where Quark tries to get Kira in the holodeck in
Oh yeah.
season
Which
three. I
she
can't
really
remember the
doesn't want to
exact
use
name.
it. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yep. Any FOF Trekkies out there right now will love that reference. Um, then we have Isabel Lucas playing Erica Martin. She's Matt's girlfriend, a girlfriend of Josh Peck's character. She's more the two female leads in this are kind of both amalgamations of Jennifer Grey and Leah
Mm.
Thompson's character. I think they sort of just clash them together. But she's an Australian-born actress again, much like Chris Hemsworth. She was in The Water Diviner, Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, and In Home and Away. Then we have Adrienne Palacki or Palicki. She plays Tony Walsh again, and an amalgamation of the two female characters from Red Dawn. Red Dawn 1. Yeah, Red Dawn original. What are we going to say in this one?
The OG.
The OG. Yeah, there we go. The OG Red Dawn. Or Red Dawn 85. Sounds pretty cool.
84? 84, wasn't it?
84? 84. I think so. Yeah.
It's the OG. It's
Uh,
the OG.
yes, the OG. She was in Legion, G.I. Joe Retaliation, John Wick, SWAT Under Siege, and in TV she was in the Orville, which is Seth MacFarlane's Star Trek parody pastiche kind of thing.
Homage.
Homage, I think that's probably
It's good.
fairer.
I like it.
It's
And
decent.
she's good
Yeah,
in it. She plays the first officer. She's good.
I heard good things about it. I'm still working my way through Star Trek, so I'm not going to get to that for a
Yeah,
while.
don't confuse yourself.
No, I'm not going to. No. I've seen the 500 cigarettes meme though. That was quite funny. When the
Yeah,
guys start
that
eating
was a
them.
good episode.
Supernatural, and she was also in Agents of Shield, and we're still going with cast because there's a lot more people in this one than there was in the first.
You
Um,
promised me it was going to be potted this week.
but you have to. There's some guys you have to mention, or when we mention them later, it'll make no sense. So there are
That's fair.
U.S. Marine Corps characters who are played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Sergeant Major Tanner. He's your Powers Booth type, current serving soldier. He's best known for his role as Negan in The Walking Dead. I think that really shot him to fame. If you show someone a picture of Jeffrey Dean Morgan, 9 times out of 10, it's him in his Negan gear, isn't it? But he also played the comedian in The Watchmen. He was in P.S. I Love You. His TV credits include a role on Star Trek Enterprise. We're getting a lot of Star Trek in this week. We love it.
I don't remember him being in Enterprise.
He was like a bit character, like in one episode, really early on in his career. And then he was in Supernatural and more recently The Boys. Matthew Gerald and Kenneth Choi play Tanner's fellow Marines. Gerald has appeared in SWAT, Tigerland, and more recently as Corporal Wainfleet in Avatar: The Way of the Water and its upcoming sequels. Did anybody watch that? Don't
The
think
Way
anyone
of
did.
the Water.
Anybody watch those Avatar sequels?
The blue people are back.
My whole
Ah.
my whole thing is
Oh
that
no, the blue people.
my whole
No, I've
thing
never
with
seen them.
those movies is that they made so much money, yet no one remembers them or cares
Do you know
about
what?
them.
We should do an episode where we review it, but we haven't seen it.
Just from
just
trailers.
just from just from like zeitgeist.
Oh my god, that'd be amazing. Do you know this movie broke 1 billion on the first movies to do it? And that's all I
Well, I
know
didn't
about
help
it.
with that, but carry on.
Yeah. Yep. And Choi is known for playing Henry Lin in Sons of Anarchy. Remember that? It's a good series,
Oh
that.
yeah, that show, yeah.
Other roles include The
Unlike
Wolf of Wall
Avatar, I think
Street.
I did see that.
Yeah, no, I think more people probably saw Sons of Anarchy and remember it fondly than Avatar. Just trashing that movie today.
Just
We woke up
big
and chose
swings. These
violence
big swings.
in it. Yeah, painting, tarnishing the entire franchise. Anyway, he was in Wolf of Wall Street. I think he was one of. DiCaprio's like staff in that movie. You know, he has like the
Yeah, one of the
gang of
many in
lads
the
around him.
room. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The Office.
And he was in The People versus O.J. Simpson and Spider-Man: Homecoming. And finally, this week we have the big bad, the big protagonist of the piece from the North Korean People's Army. Will Yun Lee plays Captain Cho. He's your Strencloth Bella type Cuban, Russian kind of mash character.
Mm.
Because there aren't that many
He
baddies.
gets
There's not
zero development.
exactly. There's not as many baddies in this as there are in Red Dawn, and the movie is the worst for it. But anyway,
The
but
only person that gets less development is the Spetsnaz guy.
God, isn't it
That
once and never see him again?
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think he injects
I have
Daryl with the tracking device that doesn't have any point.
no
Um,
so much going on here when stuff happens and it's never brought up again. Anyway, he's an American-born actor of Korean descent. His roles include 007, Die Another Day as Colonel Tan Sun Moon. See, remember that one?
oh,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
that film. People always say
That was
that's when
wild, that film.
007 jumped the shark, but I love how mad it is. Um, you know,
It's a proper
Lynch's
Moore-esque
boy
Bond
nicking
film.
someone's face.
I know.
Outrageous.
I
I know.
know.
It was great. Saw that in the cinema the day it came out.
I did too. I did.
Someone stole the last sweet popcorn because they pushed in front of me. I was 6. How could you do that? Just barge a child out of the way and take the last popcorn.
Not today, young Robert. Not today. That
Absolute
popcorn's mine.
blackguard. Absolute
Get
blackguard.
me the diet that not the what was it called? Like what was the movie called again?
Die another day.
Oh, that was it. Get me the Die Another Day commemorative popcorn bucket right now. This
Yeah,
child is
well,
not having it.
I bet he wasn't taken to Model Zone and bought every single car in the movie right after, though. I
Did you
won
have
the
the Aston
day.
Martin too? I had the
I
Aston
had
Martin.
it. I had the RC one.
Ooh,
Oh, it was cool.
someone was spoilt. Oof.
It was a birthday treat, I think.
Oh, well, that's nice. Yeah, I had the little I had the kind of one in 12s. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
the thing. You know that one. I had the Aston
Did you have
Martin
the
of that.
green Benz with the
I
mini gun in it?
no, I
I
didn't
had
have the
that as
green
well.
Jag. No.
I got that one as well. But it was a
Oof.
smaller version, so playing with them looked weird because it was like a giant car and a tiny car.
Did you have to put the Aston Martin like really far away from
Yeah,
the
with a
Jag so it
forced
looked right?
perspective. Yeah. Anyway, let's get through Young Lee's credits. So he's been in the Total Recall remake as well. Rampage with Dwayne the Rock Johnson. I think you have to say that still, don't you? Um, and his TV roles include Hawaii Five-O reboot, Altered Carbon, The Good Doctor, and Black Runner Black
Hmm.
Lotus. So yeah, not a fantastic cast, but we'll get back on that later.
Serviceable. Like,
Yeah.
mm, mm,
So Matt,
mm.
you have production. The floor is
I
yours.
do, and boy, do we have a week of it this week.
Boys,
Jesus.
howdy, strap in, folks.
So, directed by Dan Bradley, who is better known as a stunt coordinator and a second unit director. So, if you're not familiar, second unit directors tend to do the more action-packed sequences
Yeah,
in the film and
the fun
um
stuff.
yeah, the fun stuff. And in Red Dawn 2012's case, he was both the first unit and second unit director, so he did everything, which makes sense, being a
Yeah,
very accomplished second
of
unit
course.
director.
Yeah.
He's worked as a stunt coordinator on films like Jurassic World Dominion, Ad Astra, Paul Blart Mall Cop 2,
Wow.
um,
Blah
The
harder.
Bourne Legacy, yeah, Blart Harder, Bourne Ultimatum, Bourne Supremacy, Seabiscuit, Jackass the movie, Three Kings, actually,
Get in.
um, a little known Kelly's Heroes remake. The Devil's Own, which has a brilliant like opening set piece, which is really good.
We're
Um,
planning to do that, aren't we? But we have an idea for it, don't we?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Not the whole film.
Not the whole
Um,
thing.
Independence Day Casino. Um, and then his second unit director credits include Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny, The Expendables 3, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Three Kings. Um, and when he was asked in an interview with Behind the Lens in around 2012, what he was asked, what was it like having to wait 3 years for the film to come out? And
That's
he
a
said,
crazy fact, isn't it?
okay, we're gonna get onto that in a moment, but I've got to like kind of insert this here so it
Stages.
kind of
Okay. Right.
makes sense for everyone. He said, it's kind of unbelievable. For a long time, I just had to not think about it. We worked incredibly hard. We broke every production record MGM had ever set so far, for as many setups a day as we could. We really worked incredibly hard. To those financial problems that were so outside of our control, that impacted the film in such a way it was heartbreaking. Frankly, there was a year and a half period where I had to stop thinking about it because it was killing me. So
Blimey,
imagine you're a super accomplished stunt coordinator, second unit director, and you finally get given the
your big
chance
break.
to make a film of
Yeah,
your own, and you get given an IP like Red Dawn, which
yeah.
for anyone that loves action movies of the 80s and this that kind of film, it's Milius, it's bombastic, it's really cool
It's a
premise,
proper cult
and it's a
classic.
cult film.
Yeah,
Exactly. Imagine being like getting that IP, getting to make the film, and then the studio is in such turmoil that they can't release it for like 3 years. It would kill you. You'd go insane.
yeah,
Like no one's seen this film I've made,
yeah.
you know,
Because you
and
can't even use that to jump into other
no, you can't.
projects.
So it kind of he kind of just went back into doing second unit directing and that kind of stuff and hasn't really done another film of his own since, which is
No,
kind of a shame because the direction of the film isn't actually, it's
no,
not
it's not.
bad.
No,
That's not
that's
the
not the
weakness of the
film's
film.
issue. Yeah,
Screenplay was provided by two writers, Carl Ellsworth, who wrote two episodes of Xena Warrior Princess and an episode of Buffy.
wow.
Um, no credits really since 2020's Unhinged, although he's apparently currently working on Gremlins 3.
Ooh,
Jeremy Passmore was the other screenplay writer. Um, did some writing on the 2012 Sleeping Dogs game, if you remember that.
love that game.
Um,
Yun Lee voiced, I think, the main protagonist in that, or someone in
yeah, I
that.
wonder if there was a connection there where he was like, oh, I
Mm,
can, yeah, yeah.
I know a guy.
Um,
Yeah,
also worked on Vice and the Dwayne the Rock Johnson um, San
TM.
Andreas film of 2015. Music was provided by Ramin Djawadi, who, if you listen to our Fallout episode, you know that he worked on the new Fallout TV show.
Hmm.
Also worked on the Jack Ryan series for Amazon, Westworld, the Uncharted movie, House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, Pacific Rim, that sort of stuff. Quite an accomplished
Decent, yeah.
uh,
Soundtrack's not a
com
problem either in this.
composer. No, it's not. It
No.
goes for more like a more thematic kind of feel to it, doesn't it? And cinematography was from Mitchell Abinson. He has got quite an impressive career. He's been um, in film since about the 80s, and he's worked on things like Flipper, Man in the Iron Mask, Armageddon, Wild Wild West, Red Planet, Pearl Harbor,
Ooh,
National Treasure, Mission Impossible 3, Rise of the G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra. Justin Bieber, Never Say Never. He was the cinematographer on that tour for,
wow.
film. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Born Legacy, and Deep Water. So he's kind of like a journeyman. He worked his way up from camera
Mm,
operator to cinematographer. And I think cinematography wise, again, the film is fairly strong. There's some
it's fine.
decent
It's
stuff in
absolutely
there.
fine. Yeah.
It's it's serviceable, isn't it? And then finally, rounding out the production team side of things, we have military advisor John Barton, who was a former US Marine, and he has worked on shows including JAG, NCIS. He's also worked on Punisher Warzone, Battle Los Angeles, Soldiers of Fortune, Oblivion, and Camp X-Ray, which is that Kirsten Stewart movie where she works at Guantanamo and
Oh,
gets
yeah.
chatting with one of the inmates. Um, Now we've got to talk about the wild part of this. So the film was filmed originally, it was filmed September, December 2009.
That's
Now think about
crazy.
that.
When you told me that in the group
September,
chat,
December. Not only is that 3 years, but they filmed it in 3 months.
right. Yeah, okay. It's a tight
That is
shoot.
fast. So, like I
Yeah.
said earlier, when Bradley was talking about they broke records for MGM Productions and the number
Yeah.
of setups per day,
Give me
they
a
were
Red Dawn
smashing out
remake and
like,
make it snappy. Yeah.
what, we're hemorrhaging money. We need a good film.
We
Anyway,
need a hit.
so they were smashing out like set pieces that would on a bigger budgeted film would normally take 20 days in
Mm,
like 3 4 days. They were doing stuff like
yeah.
TV style, like
Because
fast.
the guy's a pro stunt coordinator, so I
Yeah,
guess he
he
could do
handled
it.
it.
Yeah,
So the film had a budget of 65 million. And the current box office figures that I could find for it is 50.9 million return.
yeah, didn't
Yeah,
make a profit. Yeah,
no, which is quite surprising given, Peck Hutchinson and Hemsworth are all, fairly well known by 2012.
mm.
You would
Well,
think there would
Hemsworth is
be,
a mega star by that
yeah,
point.
you'd think there'd be some
Yeah,
sort of draw. He's Thor, you know.
mm, mm.
So largely filmed in Michigan. There's a little bit where it was filmed in actual Spokane, in
Okay, I
Spokane,
was
Washington.
gonna say that's good.
Yeah. Um, very short production time, as I said. But the film's release was delayed due to essentially MGM went bankrupt. They were like $3.7 billion in debt
Crikey.
in by like late 2010, which
Yeah,
is, it's a huge amount of money. So they filed for bankruptcy protection, and that took about 5, 6 months. But by like spring 2010, they're looking at, you know, bringing this film out. It's going to be
yeah.
one of the first that kind of relaunches the MGM brand once everything's been
Oof.
stabilized.
What
Yeah,
a film!
yeah, right.
What a film
Um,
to launch back on.
so they kind of go, okay, well, we're going to get this ready to go, and then there's a leak. The film's script leaks, and there's some set photos that leak. And it
Right.
turns out that the antagonist of the movie is China, the Chinese.
I
And
remember
we're
this at the
entering that
time.
period of Hollywood where we're having to kind of appease China. We can't make them the bad guy because
No, because
the
we want that
market in
Chinese
China,
yen.
the
We need that
Chinese
yen.
cinema market is
Yep.
exploding. It's
Mm,
becoming a massive thing. And China's cinema industry at the time isn't what it is now. So, there was room for Hollywood movies to make a decent buck. It still is, arguably.
hmm
Look at Disney. They're really chasing that
Yeah.
Chinese dollar.
Look how many times they changed the MCU or did scenes. Oh, look, the Avengers are in Beijing for a scene. You know,
Yeah. So essentially, someone was paid to keyframe all of the Chinese symbolism out of the film
that's mad.
with CGI, which is massive. So the opening preamble that kind of gives context to the film,
Hmm.
they changed that completely. So initially, it was going to be China invades the US to essentially on a massive repossession mission after the US defaults on loans. Um,
Wow.
yeah. Um, it then turns into North Korean
Don't pay or
invasion,
we'll take your country away.
right? You know, um, they re-edited two more scenes. They changed some of the the very very short sequences of dialogue that the actual antagonists
Yeah.
get
They say
from
nothing. They
Chinese to
have no
Korean.
lines. And maybe that's why.
Maybe the edit just went, no, it's cheaper if we just cut it.
Yeah.
But apparently the edits cost under a million to do,
Oh,
so they
okay.
weren't a budget breaker. Um, And then the only other thing that I did see in an interview, I read a couple of interviews around this, because don't say that FOF doesn't do its research. I read an interview with a couple of the producers and the director, again for Behind the Lens, and he was saying that Milius had the Cubans, so it wasn't like a massive jump to have the North Koreans being the
No.
antagonists,
Mm.
which fair claim, but I mean, mostly the Cubans were just given that sector, and it was the Russians that were
Yeah.
doing the invading.
China and Russia are stronger enemies
Yeah.
of America in fiction and I guess real life. Making it North Korea, yes, there's some historical beef there,
Mm.
Korean War, etc. But I don't know, like I don't think the movie's worse off or better off for the change.
No, I don't. I
I,
honestly don't think
I
it
don't
matters
think
at
it
all.
saves it, and it clearly didn't save it because they didn't make money in the Chinese market anyway.
And you know why that was? Because it wasn't released in China.
Exactly.
The film was released
Exactly.
in late 2012 to over 30 regions, none of which included China. It
No,
was released in Hong Kong, however,
they cut their
um,
losses there, didn't they?
which I'm sure they really enjoyed it in Hong Kong.
Oh yeah. Well, they enjoyed it more if it was China, didn't they? Yeah.
They would.
Might
That
cut
rounds
that.
out production.
Yeah. No, good. Great production this week. Great. So on to the retro review, followed by the one-word review. And this week's retro review is from The Guardian by Peter Bradshaw from March 2013. And I think it must
Did he
have come
love
out
it?
on DVD.
Did Peter love it? Peter
We'll
must have
find
loved
out.
it.
We'll find
Peter
out.
gave it 6 stars, didn't he? Peter loved it.
He gave it 1 star out of 5. He says, this has to be this year's most pointless remake, a boring and badly acted reboot of John Millis's gung-ho Red Scare actioner from 1984. A bunch of gutsy college kids hold out against an invasion of the US by Soviet forces, forming a guerrilla army that kept the flame of patriotism on alive. But in this movie, how on earth did North Korea, apparently without using nukes, actually manage a ground invasion of the US? Did they have help? Here's where the film ties itself in its hilarious knots. There's a blue beret Russian military advisor who's allowed to frown in a couple of scenes, but the tactless question of the Chinese, without whom North Korea can do nothing in the real world, is not mentioned. China is an important foreign market, and Hollywood movies have been very careful. Very careful to choose which Far Eastern commies they vilify.
Or how did North Korea get to, mainland USA? How?
I know,
They have like
I know.
they have like two like long range airlift aircraft.
Long game. They just played the long game.
Very long game.
Yep, yep. Right, so the one word reviews this
Oh
week.
God.
What did you guys think? And it's it ain't pretty. So we have Lance Nielsen goes with incomplete. Tom Petch goes with original, which is fair.
I think Tom's saying original's better. I'm going to assume that.
All right, okay, yeah. But I thought you meant what an original spiffing take. Um, Adam Christian goes with, and it's one word. He hasn't spaced it out. He goes, so much potential, yet so disappointed. Yeah, agreed.
Mm,
Matt Moss goes with CGI. History Rage podcast says enjoyable. Craig Bruce Smith says China. Kevin Getz says why?
China.
China. Mark Barnes says daft. Paul Hicks goes with shite. Brian Williams says bollocks. The Dark Secret Place says Spokane. The Sophisticats review pointless. Mark Garlasco craptastic. Matt Green originals better. And to round out this week with perhaps my most favourite one-word review to date, former army veterinarian says suboptimal. Just love it. I just thought it was great. The one-word reviews were fantastic this week, folks. Thank you so much. I was really chuckling away when they started coming through.
Great ones there.
No, there were some fantastic one-word reviews. Right, let's talk about some things we actually like about this film in the alley tally.
It's time for Alley Tally on Fighting on Film.
This is 5 to Alpha. Contact now. Agreed. 852-676. Approximately 4 tanks and 10 APCs moving directly towards the wood. I'm observing. Over.
Hello, Sunray. Fighting on Film has partnered up with warfaremedia.net to give our listeners exclusive discounts on a range of high-resolution Cold War adverts, propaganda, and recruitment posters. From blowpipes to nuclear threats to weapon schematics, Warfare Media has you covered. Visit warfaremedia.net today and use the code FOF20 at checkout for 20% off high-quality Cold War posters. I repeat, FOF20 at checkout. Over.
Roger, out to you, and take action now. Send us SITREP as soon as possible. Over.
Roof Claymore.
Pretty cool, isn't it?
That was good. I like that.
Pretty
So there's
cool.
a sequence where they're evacuated from a mission to steal a comms unit from the North Korean headquarters.
The MacGuffin of the movie. The movie's
Yeah.
MacGuffin.
Yeah, apparently North Korea have a hardline comms system. God knows what hardline they're attaching that to. It's a hardline to a satellite. That's how
big EMP,
satellite
innit?
communications work.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, EMP things.
The plot is paper thin on this, Matt.
Yeah, it is. So anyway, they exfil to this safe house and they've set it up already, and there's a cool little sequence where Hutchinson playing Robert digs a hole in some plasterboard and puts a claymore into the roof of the stairwell to cover the stairs.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, that's gonna get used. And it does.
Chekhov's
I knew I
claymore.
was going to say it too. It's Chekhov's claymore. Um, and it does get used to great effect. And I was like, that's cool. That's nice.
Mm,
I like that sequence as a whole, actually.
yeah,
Because there's some mouse holing. It's all the good Fibula stuff.
yeah. This in this movie, I'll give it credit now, where I think they feel like more of a guerrilla force than they did in Red Dawn.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll
Maybe.
explain why in my later on.
But yeah, Roof Claymore for me. And then the high power was nice too.
It's really cool to see a high power in a
Mm,
modern movie, isn't it? We
mhm,
love high powers on the show. Um, so for me, I've got Tech
mm,
Nine pistols and
mm,
Cobra M11 submachine guns used in the first ambush that the Wolverines undertake. Because I like how they start off with like scavenged Winchester repeaters and bolt actions
mm.
like they do in the
And
original.
then
So
they go and buy some guns off sketchy people,
they buy some guns. They
which
buy.
I like that.
I like that they buy the same high power that they already have because it's in a bag. If you noticed,
Well,
yeah,
maybe they just put that in there when it's easy to
maybe
carry.
prop department error. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe they like the high power so much they bought another one.
I bought another one. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, they start off with the Winchesters and bolt actions like the original movie, and they like
Hmm.
slowly upgrade their weaponry. So they get these Tech Nines, and Hemsworth fires like it off into like a creek, and it's really inaccurate. And he goes, "We need better guns." So they have a
Yeah, that's a nice little scene because what he kind of does is he aims closer and closer to things, and he's
yeah
like, oh, okay, so that's the effective range, which is
uses his
true.
marine
There's
training.
I liked that. I did like that. I agree on that. And they use those in a homage to the gas station
Yeah, it
ambush
is, isn't
in
it?
the original,
When they all come
where
up
they
out the
pop up out
ground.
of the ground.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, which is great. But my main issue with that ambush is it's absolute bollocks because they're in Spokane, they're in a city, they're in a full-on city, and she has led them away from a checkpoint that had like armored vehicles and numerous other guys. And, like four people were after them. They kill like five North Korean dudes. I was going to say Chinese, North Korean dudes. Um, where's everyone else in Spokane? Like where's the rapid
yeah.
reaction force to defend
The,
this checkpoint? Like, come
you're gonna
on.
we're gonna have to
They
say it now. The scale of the city doesn't help
No, it really
the
doesn't.
movie in terms of if you because we overthink it a lot, but
And
like
I like the fact that Hemsworth is like 30 seconds, get weapons and ammo.
yeah,
Great. But then they dawdle around for like 5 minutes talking and don't fuck off. Like, just
because
go, get the guns
they
and
need to have
go.
dialogue. Yeah, I know. Like
If they'd run, hopped into the back of a pickup truck and sped off, that would have been a great
they kind
scene.
of do, don't they? They hop in that Hummer.
A
Yeah,
little bit, yeah.
yeah. So like because the early scenes of them like learning how to be Wolverines and doing the ambushes are quite strong, but the cityscape doesn't really help. It helps them do what they need to
Mm,
do because they all have plot armor, but you never feel like the North Koreans are this massively opposing force. Whereas
yeah.
in the original, the Russians feel like they are way overpowered. Like you
Mm,
get that sense. You don't really get it here,
no.
even though they try. It doesn't kind of work for me. So yeah, getting back to my alley tally. So I think personally the handling of the high schoolers becoming guerrilla fighters is done better because
Mm,
I really like there's a montage sequence where they have
mm.
Hemsworth using his marine training, giving them like a pep talk of, we got to fight back. And
Using
he's,
his marine training to give away their position by emptying half a magazine of high power
I
ammunition
knew
into
you
the
were going to
sky
say that.
to startle them while they're eating.
My missus,
Amazing.
my missus went, yeah, that's a great use of the lack of the small amount of ammunition you have to scare your troops. Anyway, I like that they do basic drills. They train with like super
Yeah.
soakers and toy guns.
Where'd they get
um,
them from?
God knows,
In the
probably in that
woods.
bag of stuff they bought. Um,
Yeah.
and I like the montage. It just shows them like bartering for kit, like you said. It's just more than you get in the original, and it helps. It doesn't help the movie's timeline because it never tells you exactly when you are
Mm.
and how much time's been.
Yeah, the
Sort of
OG does time passage a little bit
a
better, I
little bit
think.
better, a little bit better,
With the
like
weather
with the
and
seasons.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot better. Um, but then yeah, other Ali Tally picks. The Subway product placement is
Oh my
wild.
God, that was incredible. That's my
Um,
favorite scene.
but there is a line. There was a handbook about being a partisan written by an ex Spanish Civil War uh, passes a fighter.
Did he say go to the subway?
No, he didn't say that. He said about
No
stealing.
pasaran, go to the subway.
No pasaran, yeah. Eat fresh. He said about like guerrillas stealing is like you just need to do it like last resort. Don't worry about like making people love you initially. Just take what you need, and then essentially after you've done positive things for the occupied people, then they will see it. So there is a little bit of something in that.
Yeah, they'll remember you saving their lives, not stealing their subway.
But that scene is weird. Like he goes, sandwich ice, fill this up.
I love that. It's so
and he
so
runs
weird.
out with like a bucket of Pepsi.
Can I talk about my favorite scene when we get to favorite scenes?
Of course, sorry.
It's my favorite scene.
Sorry. There's some AKMs converted into AK-74s. There's some captured Hummers that have the North Korean star like plastered over the US flag on them, but they have them minutes after they invade. So it's really confusing. How did they get the Hummers so quickly?
The producers say that they stole them from the National Guard, which yes, okay.
But how quickly? Because they're on the ground and then they're in the Hummers like 2 seconds later.
I know.
And that whole landing sequence is clearly inspired by the mission from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 that came out in 2009. Heavily references it, like in its own style.
When did Call of Duty come out in 2009? Did it come out at the beginning of the year?
Middle of the year, like August.
Okay, maybe then. Maybe.
Yeah, it seems like
they filmed it in September, Robert. It's a bold move on their part to just lift that after I played this cool game yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, just seriously, you want a better Red Dawn, play that mission from Modern Warfare 2. Like it's better than this. But no, apart from that, there's some decent like civilian clothing, and there's like some cool sort of chest rigs.
Skateboard IED.
Skateboard IED is really cool. Yeah, there's some good improvised like explosives. And then I'll talk probably a bit more about more
M249 saw mini-me.
That's
There's
cool.
a nice scene where Robert's on the roof, where they kind of save a lady that helps them and some other people, which is a reference to the ambush of the wagon in the original.
Yeah,
the
and
truck.
then he shouts Wolverines, and everyone starts picking up weapons and joins their cause, which I think actually, and I'm going to go on a limb, probably slaughtered for this, I think that's better than the first one in a way.
Going to be the voice of everyone else. No.
Let me explain. Because this one actually shows other civilians joining their cause. It's not just the 6 principal members of the cast doing everything. I appreciate that, but obviously I fucking adore the original.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
The way this does it, the way this improves on the Wolverines, makes them like sort of just what's the word I'm looking for? Like the way it adds to them as a force and makes them seem a lot more like this thing that's going to actually take off, not just these random
but you don't
kids.
see those people again, though. That's the problem.
I know you don't. Exactly.
I agree with what you're saying there, but if you'd seen them like setting up other cells and having other people, they don't really show that.
Yeah, another montage.
They could have done.
We could have had a montage of other cells knocking out
could have been
roadblocks and things.
Yeah, honestly, like that would have been cool. But yeah, I agree. That is true. That was a good representation of capturing people's, in the moment and them deciding to like rise up. But the problem with that is that later on we get the Tanner character who's like, we're here to find the Wolverines, which is great, which is really cool because
talk about that in a second. Yeah,
we've always said it. Anyway, it would be cool if anyway. He says we're here for you, like we're actually like it's all because of you. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, no way, it's not. It's not.
Is it though?
Like, one group has inspired the entire contiguous US to rise up. Like, but there's probably groups doing this everywhere.
I'll talk about that in a minute because there is. Yeah. So maybe we should get on to favorite scenes because we are heavily like washing over.
We're leaning. Oh, and the M134 minigun on the Ford Mustang,
so
which I hate.
It looks
That was it.
poor.
I've got to mention it in the alley side, but I
Yeah.
hate that so much.
They should have
We'll
just
talk
had
about the end in a
technicals. They
minute.
should have had technicals on the Ford Rangers
Yeah, just Ford Ranger it. Yeah.
or some nicked Hummers. That wouldn't have hurt them.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, they do at the very end, but I
with a big
hate it so
W on the
much.
side. Anyway,
Yeah, but they don't do that. Oh god.
No, they don't do
Anyway.
that. Anyway, heaven forbid the Wolverines get a tank. You know, would have been cool. Anyway, favorite scenes.
I'm Captain Dale Dye, and you're listening to Fighting on Film.
Matt, since I stole your favorite scene, please talk about it. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. I don't mind. That was the scene that made me go, haha, they're having a bit of fun with this. It's not all serious. An operation that goes wrong, they're gonna do an assassination attempt on the protagonist. But Josh Peck sees his girlfriend on a bus and just completely ruins the whole thing. And then the antagonist holds up like a bedside clock, which they used on some C4, which is so dumb, by the way. And we're like, holds it up and he's like, "We knew you were going to ambush us anyway." I'm like, why? You didn't need to do that. Like, Josh Peck's ruined the whole thing. Like, you don't need to.
If they knew they were going to get ambushed, why didn't they have loads of their men in those covering buildings?
Yeah. Why weren't the people they were like they were warning people to leave? That's like 101. Don't do that.
The North Koreans part,
like,
you know.
Leave. There's gonna be a big explosion, and we're gonna kill lots of North Koreans.
Again demonstrates why having it in a major city ruins the scale of it.
Yeah. It does. Yeah. So there is that great scene. The two of them. I think it's Daryl and Robert. They're the two most recognizable Wolverines of the entire cast, other than the main two.
Yeah.
They kind of take cover into a building, and then it's slowly revealed, the big reveal, that it's a subway. It's a subway, Rob, and they kind of like, they're like panting and looking out the window, and then they kind of like turn their heads and they go, "Oh, we're in a subway." And it's a really packed subway. So it's good to know that even with the North Korean invasion, that people are still eating fresh.
It's a lunchtime rush, mate.
It must have been. It really must have been, because it was
BMTs.
packed in there.
Yeah, even occupied zone, I still want a BMT.
Yeah. And I liked the fact that he was like, okay, now's my chance to get a subway, because they've been out in the hills and the woods, just don't know how they're subsisting, because we don't get any
eating killed deer,
eating that deer,
drinking its blood,
like
the first movie,
like the nice homage. Yeah, it's fine.
This whole movie every now and then goes, remember the original? Remember the film you'd rather be watching?
Oh, that's it. That's the way. That's very true. Yeah. So Daryl's like grabbing the Pepsi out the fountain, in a mop bucket.
I know. Can about anything in it.
God, can you imagine drinking Pepsi out of a Subway mop bucket? Disinfectant. And bits of lettuce, because that's all it, like, bits of lettuce from the mop, wouldn't it? The people who mopped up.
The odd olive.
Yeah, some disintegrated rye bread, from a sub. Yeah. So what was it? Oh yeah, of course. So Robert is like,
that's listing Subway items now. Right, this is top quality content.
Top 20, mate. Top 20.
Yeah.
So Robert's like, give me this, give me that. He's making an order. I don't want this. I don't want that.
I don't want flatbread, he says, or something.
Yeah, that's it. I don't want any flatbread. So then there's a cut, and it's Daryl and Robert running out the back of the subway. Daryl's got the mop bucket full of Pepsi, and Robert's got a black bin bag, or two black bin bags filled with Subway. Yeah. And then there's another smash cut to them like in the cave that they're in the mine shaft that is their HQ, eating a Subway, and someone comes in and reminds them that someone's died, and it's a complete like smash cut to like, oh, that's a bit sad, isn't it?
Of war. Yeah.
Yeah.
Subway had a
member of the Wolverines that I don't remember the name of has died.
Yeah, I think around
trying
that time,
to help Josh Peck.
Yeah. Subway must have had a big push on like synergizing like marketing in different media because they
Mm,
had a product placement in the Uncharted games, and I think
yeah.
they had a product placement in maybe Call of Duty around that time as well. Like I
Yeah.
think they went for it back in the day. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it adds a little bit of realism to the movie. It's a funny scene, but it does
It
add a little
does.
bit of realism. Mm.
I like that. That was the film having a little bit of fun with the source material,
And they're
including a
kids at
bit
the end
of
of the day.
current pop culture. Exactly. And there's mentions of Call of Duty, and there's a lot of use of Peck's phone to take photographs of things, and
Mm.
so that they do try and update it to a more modern context.
Yeah.
It
No,
would
it
have been
is
funny
good.
if Josh had gotten his BlackBerry out and was like, BBM's down. Oh no.
Oh no. Yeah. Actually, to be fair, instead of Red Dawn 2012, go and watch the Blackberry biopic, um, with Glenn
Oh yeah, you
Howerton.
rate that, didn't you? You saw that this week.
Yeah,
You were saying,
from
yeah.
Always Sunny. It's bloody good. Anyway, my favorite scene is it's about halfway through the movie. You get a US Marine Corps sort of half fire team of three lads,
Yeah, I felt like
dropping
they were
in.
supposed to be like Marine Recon or something like that.
Yeah, well, they say they're ex-Marines reactivated, like
Recently
reservists,
unretired. Yeah,
recently unretired. Yeah, they're all older guys. So you have that's Jeffrey Dean Stanton's
nice touch.
Jeffrey Dean Stanton. Fucking hell. That's Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character Tanner. And you get an overview of the makeup of the United States at the time. So I
Mm,
assume a few months has passed. You're not really sure. So he says that in fact not all of the states have been fully occupied, and that a free American army has been set up. The border states with Mexico are quote unquote on fire, with other resistance groups taking up the fight. That it's not 100% confirmed if they are Wolverines or just their own resistance groups. So I think that adds a little bit of a nice world building there.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I really appreciate it. Like there's a Radio Free America that really adds a nice touch, you know.
I think all of the messages that they say are ad libbed. No, sorry, verbatim from the original film.
Oh, great. Yeah,
I think.
yeah, yeah. No, you might be right there. No, it's just really good world building. I really liked it. You get a little bit more than you get in Red Dawn in terms of what the other like what other
Yeah,
resistance groups are doing. Um,
always want a little bit more from that
you always
Tanner
want a tiny bit
context
more.
chat at the
Yeah,
fire, don't we? Where
yeah.
he plays it so well. You know, when he throws the liquor on the fire and it goes. It's like
Atom bomb.
it's
Yeah.
like 10 million screaming Chinamen now. Like, that's
Yeah,
great.
it's really cool. Like obviously Powers Booth is Powers Booth, but Tanner
Mm,
is Tanner. They're still good
mm.
characters.
Yeah.
Um, but it's mainly just because the addition of the US Marines into it and then them having them in their Wolverine team is something I wish they'd done in the original. Like I wish
Mm.
instead of going up to the front line and seeing the tanks fighting each other, I wish we had a Delta Force team come in
Yeah, like Green
to
Berets
aid
come in
them
or something. Yeah,
or
yeah.
something. Yeah, because if you're a Red Dawn mega fan and you go on the Red Dawn Wikipedia, that happens. So in the original movie, after you see the two survivors walk out and you see Pride Rock, um, they eventually link up with the Delta team and then go back and liberate the town. And then later on, the UK get involved. They send the task force over, and stuff like that. So the
Yes.
Red Dawn expanded universe is it's amazing.
The
Anyway,
EU is wild.
it's amazing. Um, but yeah, I just really like it. And the assault on the NK office building for the MacGuffin EMP is nice because it's a completely different ending to the first movie. Not everyone's killed. Not everyone has like these big sort of over dramatic deaths like they do in the first movie, which I still love, but I like this one isn't a straight recreation, which I kind of really do appreciate. But then I think the film really drags after, spoiler alert, the big bad Captain Cho is
Mm.
killed and they kill Ned. My
Yeah.
Jed, sorry, they kill Jed. My enthusiasm for the movie just goes.
Well, it drags, but there's only like 10 minutes after that because once
Yeah.
Jed's killed, which is a big, supposed to be a big shot, but the way he's killed, he just like goes down like a sack of spuds in a stairwell.
I don't think they'd have done that if the movie wasn't filmed in '09. I think if they had the choice, I think they'd have gone
Mm.
back and made him survive,
Oh,
personally.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because he's the star power to it. But at the
exactly.
time, it
Yeah,
wasn't a
more about that
confirmed
in my
thing.
final thoughts. But yeah, I'm just like,
I
oh,
don't know why they reignite the animosity between the two brothers needlessly halfway through. I feel
yeah,
like that drags it as well. Yeah, I that bit it does drag because we get this whole kind of uh like final act of the final act
yeah,
where they escape, but they're being followed and find out that Daryl got injected with a tracker, which is a an homage to the original film where Daryl goes into town, sees his parents, and is forced to swallow a tracker
yeah.
and go back to
And
the
it's done way
Wolverines. And
better in the original because there's
oh, it
actually weight
is.
to it because you
Yeah,
care about the fucking
yeah. I,
kids.
I don't
You
don't
care
know.
about them,
I don't
you
care
know.
about Connor Cruz playing
Oh
Daryl.
no, and they totally bugger that scene up because there's no
Yeah.
stakes. They just leave him. They go, oh, okay, you did that. You weren't forced to do it, so bye. We'll just leave you here. I'm
Mm.
like,
If it had happened earlier in the film, it might have worked a little
yeah,
better, but because it's in the last 5, 10 minutes, it's pointless.
mm,
Then we get to the exfil where Tanner and the surviving Marine are about to leave, and he
on a
says, "Do you want to
Huey,
come with
lovely.
us on a Huey?" Yeah, bringing out the old stuff. Good headcan.
Yeah,
Um, but at the same time, Peck starts giving a speech to Tanner, and then it does that thing where it cuts to him being on like standing on the back of a Ford Mustang,
heck,
giving this
yeah,
speech, and it's cringe. It can't. We'll talk about Peck's acting in a moment, I'm sure, because
yeah.
Rob's got things to say, and I agree. But that entire bit is unnecessary. Then it shows them liberating the camp in Spokane, like, oh, we're going to liberate the prisoner camp in they. Oh God, there's a Ford Mustang with a minigun on the back of it, and there's flags flying, and it's such an unnecessary set piece.
mm,
Like if it had just ended
with the speech,
with the speech or with Tanner flying off, yeah.
yeah,
But otherwise, like I
mm,
hate the ending of the film. I hate it.
yeah. I see. I'm torn on it because I like the fact that obviously it tried to set up a sequel. It feels like it's trying to set up a sequel. You know, the
Led by
Wolverines.
Josh Peck.
Christ, yeah. The Wolverines going on the offensive, which I really appreciate. I like to think that there's more going on after this.
Hmm.
Because I just love the Red Dawn IP. I think it's really good. As
It's
a piece of alternative
Millis
fiction.
really hit it hard, and it
Yeah.
works so well.
But then
But yeah, has
it,
to have that context.
yeah.
And
And
modern day
it's just
context doesn't work.
no.
I have
That's
things to
it.
say about that, by the way.
That's
So
good. No, that's good. And yeah, no, you're right. And just Peck. Right now, let's get into let's do final thoughts because
yes, because we're doing
I'm
that
getting
classic
there.
FOF
I'm
thing where
getting
we
there.
kind of like into it.
Right. Yeah. Who wants to start?
I can lead off.
Yeah, go on then, mate. So, final thoughts for Red Dawn 2012.
To me, the whole film just feels like it has no stakes. I don't think there's any real stakes to it. I don't believe that invasion sequence where there's literally hundreds of like airlift
Paratroopers.
parachute troopers and transport planes flying overhead, and the CGI of that is not good. It does not stand up well
Very
because all the
09.
parachutes are exactly the same.
They look like toy army men.
They do, they do. I like the whole bit where they're driving through people's backyards and stuff. That's cool. That works well, but it doesn't have that crunchy realism, the real tension. Because Swayze is chewing the scenery in that scene
Yeah.
where they're escaping. He's like really going for it. He's like
Yeah.
clenched onto the steering wheel. He's screaming at people,
Yeah.
telling people to get in the back. He's almost crying. It's great. It's like
Yeah.
it's he really sells it. Hemsworth doesn't do that, and neither does
Mm-mm.
Peck. Like it just doesn't carry the
Hemsworth
same
tries his
weight.
very, very best.
Hemsworth's trying, but I just don't think he believes in it in the same way that Swayze
No.
and the original cast could, because the cultural zeitgeist isn't there. There is no Cold War when this
No,
was
there's no
made.
Cold War fear.
There's
And
there's
that's the
no fear.
problem. That's the problem with this
It is.
movie.
When the original was made, we're at the height of the Cold War. We've got Reagan, we've got Star Wars going on, we've got tear down this wall. It's
Yeah.
all in it's the 80s. It's height
You
of
know, like
the
UK, US,
reignited Cold
France,
War.
loads of other NATO nations have troops stationed in Western Germany as like a blocking force. You know, there's so much going on in the real world.
Yeah, there's nothing like that for North Korea.
No.
Obviously, there's US troops on the South Korean, the parallel with the South Korean
On
army,
the
but
border, yeah.
you don't see any of that. There's no mention of that. There's
Not
no
in the
mention
same way. No.
oh no, well last year South Korea was overrun, and they've taken that. I would have done it that way. South Korea was
Yeah.
overrun. They took all their transport planes, and then it's
Yeah.
possible for them to do it, but that isn't mentioned.
Or you know, you could have had
So
someone say, "Oh, I'll never forgive the North Koreans for what they did to our lads in South Korea." Just a
Yeah.
throwaway line, something.
Yeah.
Give me some context. You know.
exactly,
Yeah.
but it there's no it lacks the established Cold War zeitgeist to have a palpable reality to it.
Yeah,
So
because this is like the big Cold War fear movie. This is like Milius's wet dream.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, and that's why the original is so cult and so such a beloved classic, because it's that, and it comes out, and obviously, like you said, it comes out in the 80s. There's a precedence there. It's the ultimate what if. But this movie doesn't have that. Like, and that's the big problem here. Yeah.
and I the strengths of the film are that it's competently directed, it's competently made, it looks good. They squeeze a lot out of that 65 million
Yeah,
dollar
they do.
budget,
Yeah.
because that's not a huge budget in terms of blockbustery type summer action movie, which is what it was planned to be. So they squeeze all out, and I think Bradley knows how to make set pieces look good, and he does a really good job. Like the headquarters sequence, big bombastic. Some of the shootouts work really well. So even the smaller ones, like the ambush
Yeah.
we talked about earlier, they work. I like that the film plays with the source material in a kind of respectful way. It changes just enough to keep things interesting. You know, we've got the Daryl betrayals in there, Matt's death, Tanner's background, that they're all kind of like tweaked and changed. Robert survives. You know, these are the small things that are kind of tweaked and altered, and that gives the film a bit of its own kind of original feel.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is a bold move to try and remake a cult classic,
Yeah.
and
So
I don't think it was ever going to work.
no, so I'll jump in now off of that. Because I've got here. It's not the fact that this is a Red Dawn remake that puts me off, because as you say, it has redeemable qualities. It's shot well, good action set pieces. But it's a little bit forgettable. And I was always thinking, I could just be watching the original here, because it's a certain spark that the original has that this doesn't have. And it's very hard to do a plot like this without being likened to the 1985 film. So you couldn't call this, you know, Invasion Spokane, or something like that, because the Red Dawn similarities are just too big. So you're sort of in a rock and a hard place with that thing.
Yeah.
But then, unlike the original movie, and this is one of my biggest problems with it, the cast here is my biggest issue. So the OG, obviously, you've got Sheen, Swayze from the Brat Pack. You know, these young up and coming American actors. There's just been a documentary released about the Brat Pack in the 80s, which I want to see because it looks really good. This film has Josh Peck, right?
Fun fact, Rob, Peck hadn't seen the original when he filmed the film.
It wouldn't surprise me, right?
I read that in an interview with him. In fairness to him, he says he did see he could understand on seeing it why people hold it so dear.
Of course.
And he got into it. He took the training part of it serious, and he wanted to be good at it. But I just don't think he could bring the weight.
But it's like replacing the sun with a 40-watt bulb.
Yeah.
Right. So where am I with my notes? Right. So he just isn't that kind of actor. I don't expect Peck to be a big action star. This looks like it killed his action hopes, really. Now, if you filmed it now, you could have actors like Timothée Chalamet, Tom Holland. You've got the kids from Stranger Things who just have way more star power for an ensemble like this. Ensemble movies live and die on their ensemble. And I'm not putting them down as actors, but this lives and dies on an ensemble, and apart from Hemsworth and Morgan, there isn't enough star power here for me to care.
No.
There isn't enough
And neither of
stakes
them were
here.
known then.
Neither of them are known as well, obviously. So there's no stakes. No one has any real hat in the real skin in the game apart from Hemsworth, and later on Peck when he found out his girlfriend's been captured. But there isn't enough here for me to root for anybody. The only people I root for are the US Marines who come in because they're so cliche, they're brilliant. And they add a little something. They just add a little spark to this movie. Like it feels like someone's turning the key, and it's like a dry. You know when the engine's dry, and it's like. It feels like someone needs to turn that ignition and make me give a shit because I just by the third act, I just didn't care. I was like, right, they're going to get the MacGuffin, and they'll be fine, you know. And that's where I sort of come in to it.
Another part of that adds to that element of unbelievableness is Peck doing parkour, leaping across down into the HQ and stuff, off buildings and all that kind of stuff.
Like I get he's a quarterback for his high school, but they didn't even do anything fun with that. Like they could have, instead of the skateboard C4, I thought they were going to strap some C4 to a American football, like in Three Kings, and have him launch it into like a really hard to get to position or something.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Like, or taking out a helicopter like that, like in Three Kings. I just thought they could have done more with these people. Like they all have certain skill sets. You know, I buy Swayze and Sheen as these high schoolers who become, these really embittered, hardened guerrilla fighters. But I don't necessarily buy the cast of this. There's too many characters as well. There's too many people who don't do anything. They're just there to sort of fill the ranks. And I've got here, for something like this, that's a hell of a lot more enjoyable. I don't know if FOF listeners are avid gamers or not, but there's a series called the Homefront series. And the first game is written by John Milius. And it essentially is Red Dawn 2012. The North Koreans are the enemy. They invade the US through, there's a big AMP again, and they invade. And you play as one of the resistance members. And for Red Dawn 2012, those games are just better because at least you can play it and have a bit of fun. You know, it's this movie is not worth your time, but don't go into it expecting really strong characters, really strong
no. And I think
story.
The setting of it is a massive issue as well, because if you set it in a major city, you need to show a major city under lockdown, under enemy control. You have to have some sequences where you've got huge troop movements, got people doing a victory march, you've got people getting subjugated.
Yeah, there's not enough.
The film doesn't do enough of that to really sell it. And Milius had a smaller budget, it's a small film, but he had the advantage of setting it in a small rural town where you could play with that Americana, you could play with the cultural zeitgeist, the Cold War themes, the American, classic Americana themes, and touch on those recognizable elements.
What you're saying is essentially it needs Milius to be really right wing for it to work. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but what I'm saying is I just don't think the scale of it worked. I don't think that setting it in a city works when they could have just done the exact same thing where they set it in a rural town and show us the North Koreans coming through and taking things over. But yeah, Milius was right wing, is right wing.
Yeah,
and that obviously comes through in.
But he has enough.
Original.
There's enough little nods to Americanism and the culture.
But it's not about being right wing in that sense. It's he knows the culture.
Yeah,
there's
that's
no
probably
culture in this other than the subway.
Yeah.
The reason I like the subway bit is because it touches on something that's current. Well, what's current is current, and there's little nods to
also,
Call of Duty where one of them says, "Well, we're playing Call of Duty and it sucks."
Yeah.
That was clever. I like that.
Getting back
but
on that,
it doesn't do it in the same way.
On your
same way as
thing.
well.
I know, obviously, gun laws in the 80s completely different to what they are now, but there's no scene where someone goes, "Oh right, all the North Koreans came and took everyone's guns." You know, there was a scene in the first movie where there's a pistol on the floor and it's got a bumper sticker that says, "Take my guns out of my cold dead hands." and a Soviet trooper does take a gun out of someone's dead hand. It's so on the nose, but it works. There's nothing here. Because I was always thinking, oh right, so yeah, there's guns everywhere in the States. There's you're in Michigan. I don't know what their gun laws are like, but
Well, they're in Washington State,
Washington,
which is
sorry. I don't know
I don't know what theirs are like either, but
no,
yeah.
but there's something here missing. There's little
Yeah.
cultural clues missing
Mm.
that adds to the first movie this doesn't have. But it's so irritating as well because from production point of view, from a movie point of view, just as a piece of cinema, piece of film itself, it's well paced, doesn't really drag. It is quite quick. It's an hour and a half. You can, you're done in 90 minutes. It's got everything you want from a movie, but then it just has these major flaws because it's a Red Dawn remake. Like, if it wasn't a Red Dawn remake, if it was its own thing, I maybe feel it might have fared better. But then I still think the cast really holds this one back for me.
It's a B movie, but not in a good way.
Yeah. If this came out on streaming now, probably do all right.
It would, yeah.
It's just an odd one. It's a really odd film. It's an odd remake. It's a weird IP to revive. Will we get another Red Dawn reboot? I don't know.
Yeah, it strikes me that this was really ambitious to take on something that was cult, and the producers knew that. They love the film. The interviews I read with them, they were enthusiastic about it. They love the film, but the writing on this is just not strong enough.
It's not.
It's not. You can't compare this to Milius on form.
No. They could have got Milius in to write it. To be fair,
they could have done. I didn't see any indication that they approached him, but yeah.
No, maybe not. Maybe he thought I'd done it before, or maybe he took the home front money, didn't want to do the remake. Anyway, so I think I'm not on the fence on this one, Matt. I don't hate it, but I don't love it.
I don't hate it as much as on rewatching it. I don't hate it as much as I remembered. Like there's some redeeming features to this, but at the same time, it's unnecessary.
Yeah,
we didn't need it.
If you watch the first one, you're always gonna. This film is tainted.
Yeah.
If it was a sequel or something different with the same IP, there's something.
If they'd gotten Milius on board, just round out a story and then fill it out themselves. If they'd set it in the 80s within the world that Milius created, somewhere else in the US,
follow on,
that might have worked.
Yeah,
but
Spokane,
trying to push it in
Dawn story, something like that.
Trying to push it into the current climate where there is no real enemy and China's the emerging kind of superpower that is rivaling the US, but then not being able to really capitalize on that rivalry in the same way that Milius does in Red Dawn with Russia and the US doesn't quite work.
No, it doesn't quite work. I think that's the fair assumption on Red Dawn 2012. So yeah, again, thanks for joining us on Fighting on Film for another war movie review. Good luck to your respective nation, wherever you're listening in the Euros, if they're competing. And we will catch you next week with another war movie review. Follow us on the socials, Facebook, Instagram. X is probably the best place. Do support us on Patreon if you're that way inclined. And we'll catch you next week, guys. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
There was a little Spanish flea.